The unlikely wake-up call. Jake had never been a morning person, and today, like every other day, was no exception. He gradually opened his eyes, blinking in the soft light that streamed in from the cracked blinds of his bedroom window. The familiar hum of the city outside was drowned out by the silence that filled the room. At first, he didn't think much of it, his mind still heavy from sleep, his body tangled in the warmth of the sheets. But then, as his senses started to wake up, something unusual caught his attention. He felt it before he saw it, the odd sensation of weight pressing down on his chest, the strange warmth that was too soft to be a pillow. His heart raced as his eyes snapped open, and he was met with a sight that made his pulse quicken with confusion and panic. Out there, on top of him, was a woman. Her body was positioned firmly against his, and she was looking at him with an expression that was both calm and almost knowing. Jake froze. His mind raced to comprehend what was happening, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't make sense of it. Was he dreaming? Was this some kind of nightmare? The woman was dressed in a simple yet neat outfit, her dark hair tied up in a loose bun. There was something almost unreal about her, as if she didn't belong in his world. Jake's breath hitched as he tried to speak, his voice caught somewhere between shock and disbelief. What are you doing? He stammered. The woman didn't flinch or react in the way he expected. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, a faint smile playing at the corner of her lips. "It's time, Jake," she said softly. "You have a greater purpose than you realize." Her voice was calm, almost too calm, and it sent a chill down Jake's spine. He struggled to sit up, but her weight made it impossible. He pushed himself harder, his muscles aching as he tried to break free from her strange hold. But there was no malice in her presence, no threat. She simply looked at him, as though she were waiting for him to understand something he hadn't yet grasped. "Who are you?" Jake managed to ask, his voice finally finding its strength. "Why are you on top of me?" The woman's gaze softened, and she moved slightly, easing the pressure from his chest. She didn't seem in a hurry. "I'm your housekeeper." "Lyra," she replied. "I've been sent here to help you." Jake's confusion deepened. He had no recollection of hiring anyone, let alone someone who would be in his bed, on top of him no less. But Lyra continued, her tone unwavering. "I understand this is strange, but there are things you don't know about yourself, Jake, things you'll need to learn if you want to survive." Jake's mind spun, trying to make sense of her words. He wasn't sure whether to laugh or to be angry. "What do you mean? Survive from what?" His questions came faster now, but Lyra only gave him a calm smile in return. "You're not just an ordinary man, Jake," she said. "There's more to you than meets the eye. And my being here on top of you was necessary for what's to come." Jake's thoughts were a whirlwind of confusion. His heart pounded in his chest as the weight of the moment sank in. Was this woman insane, or was she trying to tell him something he wasn't ready to hear? "Why me?" he asked, his voice shaky now. "Why not someone else?" Lyra didn't answer right away. Instead, she sat up, carefully moving off of him and sitting on the edge of the bed. Jake sat up slowly, still trying to process everything that was happening. He rubbed his eyes, hoping that when he opened them again, the strange situation would be gone. But when he opened them, Lyra was still sitting there, watching him with those strange, knowing eyes. "Because you're the one," she said, her voice steady. "You've been chosen." Jake shook his head in disbelief. Chosen for what? He didn't know what she meant, but her words were starting to make him feel like he was in the middle of something much larger than he could comprehend. Something that would change everything about his life. "Chosen for what?" he repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. Lyra stood up and walked over to the window, her movements graceful, almost deliberate. "You'll find out soon enough," she said cryptically, looking out at the city. "But for now, it's important that you listen carefully, Jake. There's no going back once you understand what's coming." The silence in the room felt heavy, as if the weight of her words was settling over him like a fog. Jake's mind was racing, his pulse still fast from the shock of the situation. "What happens now?" he asked, his voice firming with a mix of fear and curiosity. Lyra turned back to face him, her expression unreadable. "Now you start your training. There are things you need to know, things that will prepare you for what's ahead. But first, you have to trust me." Jake didn't know whether to trust her or to run. But there was something about Lyra that was both calming and unsettling at the same time. Whatever she was talking about, whatever strange purpose she believed he had, Jake realized that his life was about to take a turn he could never have imagined, and with that, the room filled with a new kind of tension and electric charge that seemed to pulse through the air. Jake's journey was just beginning, and the questions that had just been planted in his mind were only the first of many to come. Lyra's confession. Jake's heart was still racing as he sat on the edge of the bed, trying to piece together the strange situation he had found himself in. He had hoped it was all a dream, but the sharp clarity in his mind told him otherwise. Lyra, his new housekeeper, was standing in front of him now, her presence both comforting and eerie. She seemed entirely unbothered by the awkwardness of the situation, like she had done this countless times before. As Jake rubbed his face, trying to shake off the fog of confusion, Lyra stepped closer, her eyes locked onto his. "I know this is hard to believe," she said, her voice calm and assured. "But you need to understand, Jake, you've been marked. You've been chosen for something far greater than yourself." Jake looked at her, still unable to make sense of it all. "Marked? Chosen for what?" "You're talking in riddles, Lyra. I don't know what you mean." Lyra sighed softly and sat down next to him, her posture relaxed. "I didn't want to overwhelm you, but the truth is, you're not like other humans. Your bloodline, your very existence, has been linked to the survival of this planet." She paused, letting her words sink in. "And that's why I'm here. I've been assigned to protect you, to guide you through the awakening process. Everything about your life is about to change." Jake shook his head, feeling like the ground was slipping beneath him. "This sounds insane. How could you possibly know all this about me?" His voice quivered slightly, betraying his growing unease. Lyra's expression softened, her gaze steady and intense. "Because I've been sent here by those who know the truth. I didn't choose this path, Jake, it was chosen for me. You're part of something bigger, something that stretches across galaxies." The mention of galaxies threw Jake for a loop. "What do you mean? Are you saying I single quotes am ... special? Like some sort of superhero?" She smiled faintly at his confusion but didn't laugh. "Not exactly. You see, Jake, your lineage goes back centuries. Your ancestors were part of a secret alliance, an alliance between humans and extraterrestrials, created long before you were born. The powers that be have kept this secret for generations, but now it's time for you to learn the truth." Jake stared at her, trying to wrap his mind around what she was saying. "Extraterrestrials? So all this time you're telling me I've been living among aliens? I'm just ... ordinary. I'm a guy who works a 9-to-5 job." Lyra's eyes narrowed, a hint of sorrow in them. "That's the point, Jake. They've kept you hidden from the truth. They've kept you in the dark. But now, the truth is catching up with you. You're going to be pulled into something that you can't escape, whether you want to or not." Jake stood up abruptly, pacing back and forth in the small room. "This is crazy. There's no way any of this makes sense. Are you telling me I'm supposed to, what? Save the world? Fight aliens?" "Not just save the world," Lyra said, her voice taking on a grave tone. "Save humanity itself. And more than that, your choices will decide the future of the entire galaxy. What you do next matters, Jake, and you can't run away from it." "Not anymore." Jake stopped in his tracks, his head spinning. The weight of her words hit him harder than any punch. "But I'm just a regular guy. What could I possibly do to change anything? Lyra stood and moved to the window, staring out at the world beyond. The thing is, Jake, you've always been more than just a regular guy. You have abilities, untapped potential that you've never even known existed. That's what the training is for, to unlock it, to help you understand your true power. His mind was reeling. Abilities? What are you talking about? Lyra turned to face him again, her gaze intense. There's a power inside you that you've inherited, passed down from your ancestors. It's not just physical strength or intelligence. Jake, it's something deeper. A connection to something ancient and powerful. That's why you've been marked, because your bloodline holds the key to the galaxy's survival. Jake couldn't comprehend what she was saying. His world, the life he had known for 30 years, felt like it was collapsing in on itself. So what now? What am I supposed to do? And why did you come here, to my house? Lyra's expression softened, her voice dropping to a whisper. Because, Jake, the galaxy is on the brink of war. And your enemies have already made their move. It's only a matter of time before they come for you, and they'll stop at nothing to ensure that you don't awaken to your full potential. But I'm here to make sure that doesn't happen. I'm here to protect you, to help you unlock what lies within you. Jake looked at her, his mind swirling with confusion, fear, and disbelief. But beneath all of that, there was something else. Something that stirred deep within him, a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there was something to all of this. Maybe he was meant for more than the simple, ordinary life he'd always known. But one thing was certain: his life would never be the same again. The first test, Jake's head was still spinning from the revelations. His life had shifted in ways he couldn't even begin to understand. One minute, he was a regular guy with a boring office job, and the next, he was at the center of a galactic conspiracy with a mysterious woman named Lyra, claiming he was destined for something far greater. His mind couldn't catch up to the whirlwind of information that had been thrown at him. Lyra had left him alone for a few hours to process, but now she was back. Her presence was as calm and composed as ever, but there was something in her eyes. Now a determination. "Jake," she said, her voice steady, "it's time." He looked up from the couch where he'd been sitting, staring into space, trying to make sense of everything. "Time for what?" he asked, his voice weary. He hadn't slept much, and his mind was still overwhelmed by the idea that everything he knew about himself had been a lie. "Time for you to face your first test," she replied. "Test?" Jake repeated, shaking his head. "I'm not ready for any test. I barely know what's going on." Lyra's gaze softened, but her tone didn't change. "That's why we're here. You need to awaken, Jake. The power inside you won't just show up by itself. You have to be trained. You have to be prepared for what's coming." Jake stood up, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "I don't know if I can do this. I don't even know what this is." Lyra smiled, but it wasn't a comforting smile. It was knowing, as though she had expected this hesitation. "You can. You will. I believe in you, Jake." She moved toward the door of the small apartment, and Jake followed reluctantly. "Where are we going?" Lyra turned, her eyes flashing with a quiet intensity. "To where you'll begin to unlock the power inside you. To the training grounds." Jake's stomach churned. Training grounds? He had no idea what she was talking about, but something in her voice told him that there was no turning back. Whatever was happening, it was happening now. There was no escaping it. They entered a hidden elevator that Jake had never noticed before. The walls were metallic, cold, and sleek. As the doors closed, Lyra tapped a code into a hidden panel, and the elevator descended deep beneath the city. Jake's heart raced with each floor they passed. What was down there? What kind of test awaited him? The elevator finally stopped, and the doors opened to reveal a massive underground facility. The space was vast, filled with high-tech equipment and bright lights that reflected off the polished floors. There were no windows, no signs of life, just an empty, eerie silence. This is where everything changes. Jake, Lyra said, her voice echoing slightly in the empty space. This is where you'll discover what you're really capable of. Jake's eyes darted around nervously. I thought you said this was a test. What kind of test is this? Lyra led him toward a large, open area in the center of the room. A test of your mind, your strength, and your spirit. You've been chosen, Jake, and that comes with responsibilities. But first, you need to understand the power you have inside you. This training will unlock it. She gestured to a platform in the center of the room, where a series of strange symbols lit up on the floor. Step onto the platform, Jake, Lyra instructed. Hesitant but curious, Jake stepped forward. The symbols on the floor flickered to life beneath his feet, and he felt an odd sensation tingling through his body. It was as if the air itself was charged, filled with electricity. His heart pounded in his chest as he wondered if this was really happening. Was he really about to discover something that had been hidden from him his entire life? As soon as he stepped onto the platform, the room seemed to shift around him. The walls blurred, and the space expanded into something far grander. He was no longer in the small, sterile facility. Instead, he found himself in a vast, open arena. A dark sky stretched overhead, and the ground beneath him was cracked, as if it had been weathered by years of battle. Before he could even process the change, Lyra's voice rang out. This is your first test, Jake. You are no longer just a man in a city apartment. You are part of something bigger, something ancient. This is a trial of your survival instinct. You must face your first challenge head-on. Jake barely had time to react before the ground beneath him rumbled. A low, guttural growl echoed in the distance, sending a chill down his spine. From the shadows emerged a creature tall, fierce, and unlike anything he had ever seen. Its eyes glowed an eerie red, and its jagged teeth gleamed under the pale light of the strange sky. Jake took a step back, his heart thundering in his chest. This wasn't some simple test. This was real. The creature was approaching him, moving with terrifying speed. Fight, Jake, Lyra's voice echoed, distant but firm. Use the power inside you. Jake froze, the fear gripping him like a vice. He didn't know how to fight, especially not against something like that. But something inside him stirred a flicker of energy, a strange heat that surged from deep within. His body moved almost on its own, a primal instinct he had never known he had taken over. With a sudden burst of courage, Jake lunged toward the creature, surprising himself. His fists struck out, not with the hesitation of a man unsure of his own strength, but with the confidence of someone who had been born to fight. The creature recoiled, its red eyes narrowing as it advanced. But Jake wasn't backing down. He had no choice now. This was his test. He was no longer just an ordinary man. He was something more, something dangerous, something the universe had been preparing for. And as he faced the creature, his body moved with purpose. It was his first step toward understanding the power that had been dormant inside him for so long. The test had begun. Unexpected allies. Jake's breath came in ragged gasps as he stood over the fallen creature, his heart still racing from the fight. The arena around him seemed to pulse with an electric energy, as if the very ground beneath him recognized his victory. His hands were trembling, sweat pouring down his face. He had just survived his first real test, barely, but the truth was undeniable. Something inside him had awakened, and he couldn't deny it any longer. He wasn't just a regular man anymore. Lyra's voice broke through the silence, calm and steady. You did well, Jake, but this is only the beginning. The challenges will get harder. Jake wiped his brow and looked up at her, still trying to process everything. He was breathing heavily, his pulse thumping in his ears. I'm still not sure what's going on, he muttered. But I can feel it. Whatever you said, it's real. something in me changed. Lyra nodded, her expression approving but serious. I knew you could do it. Now we move on. We can't waste time. There are others who will help you in the journey ahead. But you have to trust them. They're not what you expect. Jake frowned. Help? I thought I was in this alone. Who are they? Before Lyra could answer, a deep, gravelly voice echoed across the arena, sending a chill down Jake's spine. I wouldn't be too sure about that, human. Jake's eyes snapped to the source of the voice, and what he saw made his heart skip a beat. Out of the shadows stepped a tall, muscular figure, its skin the deep shade of a midnight sky, covered in intricate markings that glowed faintly in the low light. Its eyes, however, were what caught Jake off guard. They were piercing, burning with a fire that seemed to recognize him instantly. This is Kor, Lyra said, her tone serious. He's one of the warriors who fought alongside your ancestors. You'll need his help if you want to survive the challenges ahead. Jake stared at the towering figure, uncertain of how to respond. Kor's presence was intimidating. He was no ordinary being. His stature alone was enough to make Jake feel small in comparison. And yet, there was a strange sense of familiarity in his gaze, as if Jake had seen him before in a distant memory, something from deep within his bloodline. Warrior? Ancestors? Jake muttered, still trying to make sense of the situation. I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing here. Kor chuckled softly, the sound deep and resonant. It's understandable, human. You've just awakened to the reality of who you are. But your ancestors were key in the battle for this galaxy's survival. And it's time for you to step into their shoes. Time for you to join the fight. Fight? Jake echoed, feeling his chest tighten. What am I even supposed to fight? I'm not a soldier, I'm... Exactly, Kor interrupted, his tone sharp but not unkind. You're not a soldier yet, but you will be. The power inside you is not just for defense. You have the ability to lead, to inspire, to command. And that's why I'm here to help you train. To teach you what it means to fight, not just for survival, but for the future of your world. For the galaxy. Jake's mind raced, his thoughts a blur. This was too much for one day. Just hours ago, he had been a regular guy, living his uneventful life. Now he was being told that he had the fate of the galaxy on his shoulders. Look, I don't know what you're talking about, Jake sighed, his frustration bubbling over. None of this makes sense. 1 minute I'm fighting strange alien creatures, and now you're telling me I'm supposed to lead some kind of rebellion. Lyra stepped closer, her voice soft but firm. I know it's overwhelming, but you're not alone in this. Kor will help you train. He's been through battles you can't even imagine. His strength will teach you how to harness your own. Jake's eyes flicked back to Kor, who stood silently, his arms crossed over his chest. The alien warrior's gaze was unreadable, but there was something about him that Jake couldn't shake a sense of respect, or perhaps recognition. All right, Jake said, his voice barely above a whisper. What's next? What do I need to do? Lyra smiled faintly, her eyes gleaming with pride. You start with Kor. He'll show you what it takes to survive. But understand this, Jake, there are more tests ahead, more challenges you'll need to face. And you'll need every ally you can find. Kor nodded, a brief grunt escaping his throat. You'll need to trust me, human. There's no room for doubt in a battle like the one you're about to face. Jake felt a wave of doubt wash over him. Trust Kor? He didn't even know this alien warrior. But what other choice did he have? Lyra's words echoed in his mind. He had to trust the people who would help him. And right now, Kor was his only ally in this strange new world. All right, Jake said, steeling himself. Show me what I need to learn. Kor's lips curled into a grin, revealing sharp teeth. Good. Then we begin your training, human. And know this, every lesson will bring you closer to the man you need to become. One step at a time. As Core turned and beckoned Jake to follow, the weight of his words hung in the air. Jake had no idea what lay ahead, but something deep inside told him that this was just the beginning. The path would be difficult, and the enemies would be relentless, but for the first time, Jake felt a sense of purpose growing within him. He wasn't just a regular guy anymore. He had allies now strange. As they were, and together, they would face the unimaginable. A hidden truth. Jake's mind was still reeling from the intense training session with Core. The alien warrior had pushed him to his limits, forcing him to face not only physical challenges but also emotional ones. Each lesson was a harsh reminder that there was more to his life than what he had ever known. The weight of responsibility was heavy on his shoulders, but he wasn't sure he was ready for it. As he walked alongside Lyra back to the hidden base, a place that had become his strange new home, Jake's thoughts were clouded with doubt. Why me? He asked quietly, his voice tinged with frustration. Why was I chosen? What makes me so special? Lyra glanced at him, her expression unreadable. You were chosen because of your bloodline, Jake, she said, her voice soft but firm. Your ancestors were once the key to an ancient alliance. An alliance between humans and beings from across the galaxy. You were born with the potential to continue that legacy. Jake paused in his tracks. An alliance? What are you talking about? Lyra stopped and turned to face him, her eyes locking onto his. There is so much you don't know, Jake. Your father was one of the leaders in the original Human-Alien Alliance. He was a protector, one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. And that power runs through your veins. You're not just a descendant. You're the heir to a legacy that spans centuries. Jake's breath caught in his chest. My father was involved in all of this? I thought he was just a regular guy. A man who worked as a mechanic. Lyra shook her head slowly. That's what they wanted you to think. Your father left behind a legacy far beyond anything you could imagine. But it wasn't just about leadership, Jake. It was about his connection to a power that can shape the fate of entire worlds. And now, that power is yours to wield. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The idea that his father was more than just a regular man, more than just an ordinary mechanic, was almost too much to comprehend. He had grown up thinking his family was just like everyone else, simple, humble. But Lyra's words turned that idea upside down. I don't understand, Jake said, shaking his head. If my father was so important, why didn't he ever tell me anything about this? Why didn't he tell me who I really am? Lyra's gaze softened, and she stepped closer to him, because the truth is dangerous. Your father kept the secret of your lineage hidden for your protection. He knew that, one day, you would need to be prepared. But the time for hiding is over, Jake. The universe is on the brink of war, and you are the key to everything. Jake felt his chest tighten. The weight of her words hung heavily in the air. What do you mean, the key? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. What does all of this have to do with me? Lyra's face grew serious, her eyes reflecting the gravity of the situation. Your bloodline holds a connection to the ancient energy that powers the galaxy's most powerful beings. The very energy that kept the Alliance strong. It's a force that can either protect or destroy, depending on who controls it. Your father understood this. He hid the truth from you because, if you knew too soon, the wrong people might have found out. And now, Jake, those wrong people are looking for you. Jake stumbled backward, his mind struggling to process everything. The power to control the galaxy? Was this really his destiny? He was just a guy who worked in an office. How could he be the key to anything this enormous? I'm just a normal guy, he muttered to himself, shaking his head. This doesn't make sense. How could I possibly be a part of something like this? Lyra stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. You are more than just a normal guy, Jake. The blood that runs through your veins is ancient, and it's connected to the fabric of the universe itself. The choices you make will determine the fate of everything. Jake's mind was spinning. But I don't know how to do any of this. I don't even know where to begin. Lyra gave him a small, knowing smile. That's why we're here. I'm here to guide you. Kor is here to teach you. And you'll have other allies, some you've yet to meet, some who will become your closest friends. But first, you need to understand the truth of your lineage. You need to see where it all began. She led him to a hidden chamber, the walls covered in intricate alien symbols that seemed to glow in the dim light. In the center of the room was a large stone pedestal, with a holographic map flickering above it. Lyra stepped forward and activated it with a single touch. The map zoomed in on a distant star system, far away from Earth, and Jake's eyes widened as the map revealed an ancient, abandoned world, a place that seemed to pulse with a strange energy. Lyra looked at him, her expression grave. "This is where it all started," she said softly. "The birthplace of your ancestors' alliance. The place where your father's legacy began, and where you will find the answers you need." Jake stared at the hologram, his heart pounding. A part of him wanted to turn away, to run from the overwhelming responsibility, but another part of him felt drawn to the map. The truth was out there, waiting for him, and whether he was ready or not, he was about to step into a world far greater than anything he could have imagined. "You're not alone, Jake," Lyra said, her voice steady. "But you must embrace who you are. Only then will you be ready to face what's coming." The hologram flickered and shifted, and Jake felt the weight of his ancestors' power pressing down on him. He didn't know what the future held, but one thing was clear. His journey had only just begun. The betrayal Jake had barely come to terms with the hidden truths of his past when everything began to unravel. The walls of the secret underground base seemed to close in around him, the strange hum of the machinery growing louder with each passing moment. After discovering his father's legacy, after hearing Lyra's words about his destiny, Jake had thought he was finally starting to understand his place in this strange new world. He thought he was ready for whatever came next, but the betrayal came swiftly, a sharp twist in his journey that he hadn't seen coming. It all began when Lyra asked him to meet her in a secure room deep within the facility. She had told him that it was time for him to meet a new ally, someone who would help him fully unlock his potential. Jake had felt a surge of hope. After all, he'd been relying on Lyra's guidance since the moment she'd entered his life. Maybe this new ally would help him become the leader he was supposed to be, the one the galaxy needed. When he entered the room, though, nothing was as he expected. The lights flickered as he walked in, and the strange, eerie silence from earlier seemed even more oppressive now. The only sound was the soft clicking of keys on a holographic keyboard. Lyra stood there, her back to him, seemingly focused on something in the air before her. "Lyra?" Jake called cautiously, his voice tense with uncertainty. She didn't. "Turn around, Lyra," he repeated, louder this time. And then slowly, she turned. Jake's breath caught in his chest. What he saw was not the woman he had come to trust. The woman who had guided him through his training and the strange revelations of his past. This was something else, someone else. Lyra's face was cold, emotionless, and behind her, Jake could see the faintest flicker of movement. A figure stepped forward from the shadows, their silhouette barely visible against the dim lighting. Jake's heart sank as the figure emerged from the dark. It was Kor, but it wasn't the Kor he had trained with. This one looked different, darker, more menacing, as though his very presence had changed in the wake of this betrayal. The once strong warrior was now a shadow of his former self, his eyes narrowed and filled with something Jake could not quite place: anger, hatred, maybe even contempt. "I trusted you," Jake said, his voice barely a whisper. His whole body tensed as the realization hit him like a ton of bricks. "Both of you." "You," Lyra interrupted him, her tone flat. devoid of the warmth she once carried. "I never asked for your trust, Jake," she said, her eyes hard and cold. "And Core was never really your ally." Jake's stomach turned, and he felt a sharp pain in his chest, as if the air had been knocked out of him. Everything he thought, he knew was a lie. The woman who had claimed to be his protector, the warrior who had trained him, both of them were a part of a plan he hadn't seen coming. "What is this?" Jake demanded, his fists clenching in disbelief. "Why? Why would you do this?" Lyra took a step closer, her gaze unwavering. "Because it was necessary. Your power, Jake, the power that's inside you, it's too dangerous to be left unchecked. And we're not the only ones who know about it." Core stepped forward, his voice low and menacing. "The truth is, Jake, you're a weapon. Your bloodline is the key to the galaxy's future. But the future we want to create doesn't involve humans, or you, for that matter. The power you possess is a threat to our plans." Jake shook his head, trying to process the words, trying to make sense of the twisting, dizzying betrayal. "You single quotes working for the enemy?" he whispered, his voice cracking with a mix of shock and fury. Lyra's face hardened. "I never told you everything, Jake. The truth is, the galaxy's fate has been decided long before you came into the picture. There are forces, real forces, who believe that humanity's involvement in this conflict needs to be eradicated. And you're their ultimate weapon. You were never meant to survive." The words hit Jake like a slap. "No. He stepped back, feeling the weight of betrayal crushing him. "I thought you were trying to help me." "We were," Lyra said, her voice unyielding. "But now you must understand the time for playing nice is over. The battle is already in motion, and you're the final piece of the puzzle. You've either become an asset or an obstacle. The choice is yours." Jake was shaking now, not from fear, but from the raw emotion that bubbled to the surface. Anger, betrayal, confusion. He had trusted Lyra. He had trusted Core. And now, he was left standing alone in a world of deception. "I won't join you," Jake said, his voice steady with defiance. "I'll stop you. Whatever it takes." Lyra smiled bitterly. "That's the spirit. But you'll soon learn, Jake, that choices like yours come with consequences." Core cracked his knuckles, his eyes cold as he prepared himself for a fight. "You're either with us or you're against us, Jake. There's no middle ground." Jake stood tall, the fire in his chest reigniting. He had been betrayed, yes, but he was still alive, and he wasn't going to let them control him. He wouldn't let them take the power that was rightfully his. His father's legacy was too important, and Jake wasn't going to let anyone destroy that. "Then let's see how well you fight," Jake said, his voice low and dangerous. "Because I'm not going down without a fight." With a flash of movement, the tension in the room snapped like a broken wire. The time for talking was over. The final battle was about to begin. The final showdown. The silence in the room was deafening. Jake stood, his chest rising and falling with the weight of his anger and disbelief. Lyra and Core had turned on him, the people he had trusted, the ones who had trained him and given him hope, now revealed to be his enemies. The betrayal cut deeper than any wound he had ever known. But there was no time for grief now. The ground beneath him seemed to hum with the energy that he now knew was inside him, that ancient power that coursed through his bloodline. He could feel it thrumming in his veins, the same power his ancestors had wielded. But now, it wasn't just a gift, it was a weapon, and he would use it to fight back. Lyra stepped forward, her gaze unwavering. "You still don't understand. Jake, you were never meant to survive. We've tried to protect you, to guide you, but you've become a liability. Your strength, your power, it's too dangerous." Jake's fists clenched, his knuckles white from the tension. "You're wrong," he said, his voice low and steady. "I'm not a liability. I'm a human. And I'm not going to let you destroy Everything my father fought for." Kor growled from behind her, the muscle in his jaw tightening as his eyes narrowed. "Your father was weak. He couldn't control what was inside you. But I will. I'll make sure of it." The air in the room crackled as if the very atmosphere was charged with energy. Jake could feel his heart pounding in his chest as the battle began to take shape. It was him against the two of them. The two people who had shaped his life, who had trained him for a purpose he didn't understand until now. They were no longer allies. They were his enemies. Without warning, Kor lunged forward, his movements like lightning. Jake barely had time to react as the alien warrior's fist came crashing toward him. He ducked, narrowly avoiding the blow. And then he felt it, the power within him awakened, pushing him forward, faster than he'd ever moved before. Kor's eyes widened in surprise as Jake slammed into him, knocking the larger warrior back. The force of the impact sent them both tumbling to the ground, but Jake was already on his feet, fists raised, heart pounding with newfound strength. "Is this what you wanted?" Jake shouted as he moved toward Kor, the power in his body flooding him with a surge of adrenaline. "You wanted to control me? You wanted to use me as a weapon? Well, I'm not your pawn." Lyra stepped forward, her eyes flashing with determination. "You think you can fight us, Jake? You think you can defeat both of us? We've been preparing for this moment for years." Jake didn't hesitate. He could feel the energy within him, the power of his bloodline surging through his muscles. He wasn't the man he had been when he woke up that morning. He was stronger now, focused. And he would not let them win. The ground beneath his feet seemed to tremble as he squared off with Lyra. She was fast, faster than any human he had ever faced, but Jake was no longer just a man. His ancestors had passed down a strength, a power, that lay dormant inside him, waiting for the right moment to awaken. And now was that moment. Lyra lunged at him, but Jake was already moving, his body reacting before his mind could catch up. He blocked her strike, his arm burning with the force of her power, and then countered with a quick jab that sent her stumbling back. "You're not the only one with power," Jake said, his voice growing more confident with each passing second. "I've got my own fight in me." Kor, enraged by Jake's defiance, charged again, but this time Jake was ready. He sidestepped the attack, letting Kor's momentum carry him forward, and then used the energy inside him to slam Kor to the ground. The warrior roared in fury as he scrambled to get up, but Jake didn't give him a chance. He moved in quickly, pinning Kor's arms to the floor, his strength overwhelming the alien's resistance. For a moment, the room was still, the silence almost suffocating. Lyra and Kor were both breathing heavily, eyes locked onto Jake as he stood over them, his fists still clenched. The power within him was like nothing he had ever felt before, raw, untamed but controlled. "You're not going to win this fight," Jake said, his voice fierce. "You've underestimated me. You've underestimated humanity." Lyra's gaze was cold, calculating. She stepped back, holding up her hands in surrender, but Jake knew better. She was always playing a game, always, waiting for the right moment to strike. But now Jake had the upper hand. Kor groaned as he pushed himself up from the floor, his eyes burning with hatred. "You're stronger than I thought," he muttered. "But it's not enough. You can't defeat us both. You never could." Jake's response was a slow, confident smile. "I don't have to defeat both of you. I just have to stop you from destroying what's left of humanity." He stood tall, the energy within him still crackling, waiting for him to unleash it fully. He knew this wasn't over. There were still battles to fight, still choices to make. But for now, in this moment, he had proven something important. He wasn't just some ordinary guy. He was a human, and no one, no matter how powerful, could take that away from him. Lyra and Kor may have thought they could control him, but Jake knew the truth now. He controlled his own fate. And that was something no one could ever take from him.